Hello, I'm Oli Barrett, and over the next few weeks I'm going to be meeting the chief executives of some of Britain's leading listed companies and putting them in the driving seat. I'm going to be asking them about their growth journey, about the challenges they've faced along the way, and about their plans for the next chapter. This is Ambition Nation. My guest in the driving seat today is Louis Hall, Chief Executive of Cerillion. Louis, welcome.
Thank you, Oli.
Welcome to the driving seat. Thank you for being here. Cerillion, this is all sorts, from payments, from CRM. Just give us a flavour of what the business is doing.
So we're providing the essential software to telcos that enables them to operate most aspects of their business, everything from onboarding customers to connecting those customers to the network, so interfacing with customers in storefronts or through mobile apps or through self-service online applications, through to charging for the customer's use of those networks, adding all that stuff up, putting it onto bills, sending bills to customers, taking payments, chasing payments, and so on.
You're a global business. Just give us a sense of the scale and size.
We have about 90 customers in something that I think we're at about 40 countries now. Yeah. So we're not the biggest by a long way, but we're certainly got a very broad reach.
This is a 20-year journey plus that you've been on, and I'd love to know how your role has evolved. Zooming right out on that timeline, key moments in the growth journey, inflection points, moments that really come back to your mind.
Yeah, I think first round private equity funding is obviously a big thing, and that's possibly the hardest thing we've done in terms of funding.
And where does that sit on the timeline? How many years in?
We're talking the first year essentially.
Someone might say, well, that's very early in your journey, Louis, to be going through a private equity round after just a year, but of course it was an MBO, so presumably the roots of the business went back quite a bit earlier than that.
Oh yeah, I mean the roots go back to the early 90s, essentially. Logica, large UK software house at the time, trying to build a product in what was a nascent, independent telecoms market. Mm-hmm. So if you go back to the early 90s, most telcos were still publicly owned.
Yes.
And so this was the birth of GSM, of true, ubiquitous mobile, and Logica was trying to capitalise on that wave, but was essentially a services business, so couldn't really get its head around having a product. So we were kind of an anomaly in the system.
Well, we'll come on to the float, but I've just got this image of you newly freed, bobbing around in the ocean, a very small company in relative terms at that point, maybe 6 customers.
Yeah.
What made you think, what gave you that confidence to think that you could make it amongst these big tankers that were also in the water?
I think it was different because we had a real business. So essentially we MBO'd the business unit that I was running in Logica. Yeah. And Logica was very good at, you had to stand on your own feet, so to speak, as a unit that made a profit and had P&L. So we were very much in that mode, and we knew that we could make a real business out of that, just given time and space. Yeah. And we had customers. We had at least a handful of customers when we moved out of Logica.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I think whereas most tech startups in late 90s, early 2000s were, a couple of guys and 3 dogs with 3 dog ideas.
And profit was a very strange word indeed. Okay. Yeah. So with these sort of full coffers off the back of private equity, paying customers profit, why did you want, or some might ask, need to float the business? What did it represent and what did it unlock?
Very good question. So there were a number of reasons, but if you think about the context, we'd had essentially the same private equity investors from 2002. So we raised no new funding after 2002, not really after 2001, to be honest. So all the way through to 2016, there'd been no new funding rounds, and we were keen to look at inorganic growth, to do more M&A. PE investors we had at the time weren't interested in doing more tech business, and certainly not more M&A with this platform. So it provided an exit for the PE guys.
I see.
And it gave us the platform to roll forward and keep going. And of course, coronavirus has interrupted the deal flow to some extent. Yeah. But it does give us a platform to be able to go out and buy much larger businesses than we could have done through PE investment.
Because of those deeper pockets.
Well, absolutely, because the process of raising money on the public markets is much more straightforward than the process of raising money through PE. Yeah. And I think also it's raised our profile significantly, which I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting it to have such a difference.
And what's so good about that aspect of it?
I think for us, it's about winning larger deals all the time with larger customers.
Yeah.
And that's the key to long-term growth and success. And I think if you're a big business, a big telco, buying from a business that has a market cap of around 100 million, when your business has a market cap of billions, is a tough call. But the fact that it's public and you can go on the internet and find everything out about that company and who runs it and what its finances are, it just makes a difference. So that profile, I think, has really helped.
Speaking of challenges, 2020, a global pandemic. Tell me a little bit about the challenges that you had to face as a company and the decisions that you chose to make.
Yeah, I think, well, the immediate challenge is how do we carry on providing the business as usual day-to-day services to our customers? And as we're a technology company providing software, a lot of which is provided remotely anyway, over the cloud or private cloud or public cloud or whatever, actually that was not a particularly big challenge. And back in May, we were putting customers live on new software systems with nobody in the office and nobody on site. Whereas traditionally, certainly in the past before coronavirus, that kind of activity would have had 4 or 5 people down in South Africa where this happened, all engaged on site. We were able to do that remotely because with technology you can. So I think in a sense we learnt that we could do things differently. And could make more of an advantage of being in this space.
I am wondering though, as the clients that you're working with get smarter and smarter and more innovative, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they are doing those things. Does that make them more or less reliant on you as one of their main providers?
Yeah, I think so, because the big challenge for telcos is there's a massive amount of investment going to 5G. How do you monetize that and make a profit out of it?
So you're saying more reliant on you?
Yeah, absolutely, and to do that you need more complex bundles of products to sell to customers, you need better customer interaction, particularly through digital channels like mobile apps and self-service applications. Those have got to be better, and your CRM has to be better. So there are lots of good reasons why 5G would drive more demand for our kind of solutions.
Yeah, I mean, many of these things come with a cost, not just financial, but also the more we learn about the unwitting impacts to the planet as well. And I just wonder to what extent you've got a sense of the responsibility of the sectors that you work in for making a difference.
I think, technology in a sense is a green technology by definition. But I guess there are a couple of things. One is that there's more focus towards digital communications channels as opposed to stores, call centres that require lots of people to travel to work and burn fuel and so on, as opposed to people serving themselves, customers serving themselves, talking to computers. So that has a quite a big reduction in carbon footprint if you take the telecoms industry as a whole around the world. But also the move to cloud computing makes quite a big difference. So rather than have every customer with their own data center and all the work that goes into installing those data centers for a particular customer, centralizing data centers in the cloud is I think going to make a big difference as well.
And what is your sense of that being a nice to have byproduct versus that is effectively the reason that somebody is making that choice because it is a better thing for the environment?
I think that's a happy concurrence of market and ESG. The market drives concentration to get cost efficiencies, and that happens to mean less carbon. So that I don't think it's an intention of people in the cloud computing industry, for example, to make the planet greener, but that is a very helpful byproduct.
Yeah, understood. Now, speaking of how we all connect, I wonder what your reflections are on your own culture as an organisation, how it's evolved, how it keeps evolving.
I think that the challenge, there's a dichotomy here in that, on the one hand, remote working has given us some real business efficiencies. So productivity, I can see, is certainly higher in some areas. So that should be tick, great. On the other hand, we're an innovation business, and it's quite hard to innovate if people are indefinitely at home. And I do think that the environment where, if you take, for example, a group of engineers sitting around a table with a whiteboard in the room, is different to everyone being on Teams or Zoom. And we do need that dynamic.
And how about the ability for you to win clients, the lifeblood of your business, remotely at a distance? So much of your history was in that face-to-face encounter.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have bizarrely seen an uptick in opportunities, certainly at the start of the coronavirus crisis. And, the processes that we were running, the sales processes that we were in before the crisis have pretty much all carried on. We're not seeing any decrease in opportunities.
And how about a bit more broadly? There is so much doom and gloom around, and it's not hard to find a pessimist these days. But in terms of the bigger outlook for telecoms and a bit more broadly, what do you see?
I think from a business point of view, clearly if you're in hospitality, it's a terrible place to be. We're fortunate to be in technology where I think there's a quite an ebullient feeling that technology is going to be a winner in a lot of technology sectors out of this. People are dependent more on technology at the moment, and I think will go on to be more dependent on technology. So from that point of view, I think there's more opportunity than challenge.
And I just wonder, as telecoms go, we've originated a couple in the UK, who the kings and queens of tomorrow's telecom sector will be. Would you like to place any bets on that?
Well, there are certainly some big conglomerations of telcos around the world, some of which we work for. But I think technology, on the one hand, in the macro environment, is becoming more concentrated and more powerful. But I do think there's always space for upstarts, because in the end, the larger the business, the slower it tends to become. And I think in sort of business software, you've got to be innovative. And I think that there will always be a space for people to upset the apple cart.
So my final question pertains to today. When you're facing a big decision in the driving seat, just before you make that big decision, what do you do?
To be honest, it's a mix of where will this take the company in terms of its vision, in terms of where we're trying to get to in the market. But it's also based on some fairly sober numbers. What does this do to this year's numbers, next year's numbers? Could this potentially lead to a downgrade if it goes wrong, et cetera, et cetera? So it is a mix, I'm afraid, of sober numbers type thought and what it does to the vision.
That's a really nice image of cross-checking that vision and those numbers. That's a fascinating peek inside an extraordinary business. Chief Executive of Cerillion, Louis Hall, thank you so much for being in the driving seat.
Thank you, Oli.
Thank you.